Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to House Divided here on Orange Bloods Live. You'll forgive me if I'm staring right like a piercing dagger through the soul of Chad Hastings. No, Blinky didn't blink. For the first time, he and I are doing a show post House Divided, and I gotta say, I'm a little pissed off about the way the football gods have done us. We can't just have a show, one goddamn show, Chad, where we just talk about the A&M game. We've got to have, admittedly, flat out chaos in recruiting. Mm-hmm. We put Jamie French on the tees. It should just be chaos with like a picture of Kindergarten Cop, where when the kids are going crazy in the classroom and Arnold is like, ah, that should have been the thumbnail. Yeah. And oh, by the way, there's this little thing called an SEC championship game that some team from the state of Texas will get to play in on Saturday for the first time. So look, there's a lot of stuff to get into. Like, comment, subscribe to the page. Wow, it is, and we just had a press conference, Steve Sarkeesian, which I thought there was some really interesting stuff to pull out of that. I kid everybody not, the highlight of any Steve Sarkeesian press conference in the first 4 years that he's been on campus occurred about 15 minutes ago when our guy Terry at Horns Illustrated quoted Bob Seger's like a rock in asking a question. Honestly, the rapture could occur, and I'd be okay with it, Chad. What the hell? It's 2024, and I just don't feel like life's ever going to get better than it just was 15 minutes ago when I didn't question my life's choices. I was thankful for every single step I've taken in my life that put me in the position to be watching the LonghornNetwork.com so that I could hear that take place. I don't even know if I want to go on living.
It really did come together. It gave your life it gave my life more meaning than it had, Catch. And then for some reason, I wanted to buy a pickup truck. That's a different feeling. That's a whole different feeling. But yes, that did happen. And there were a couple things coming out of the presser. I would tell a Texas fan, there was a question about Quinn's ankle and about Kelvin Banks. And is Kelvin an ankle as well?
Yes.
Okay. So both were asked about. It sounds like both practiced today, he said Quinn practiced and it'd be about the same as last week. He said Kelvin Banks is a process, but it was a good start to the week. Technically, I don't know if he said he practiced.
I don't know if they need Kelvin Banks to practice. This legitimately may be like the NFL.
Right. True. That is true.
But they'll want to see him on Thursday in what amounts to a bit of a walkthrough and say, okay, can you give it now? But right. Alex Dunlap actually reported yesterday that the early signs on Kelvin Banks are very promising for starting on Saturday. But Sark, when asked about Quinn, it was actually very direct and to the point. It was actually a very revealing answer. He just said, it's about the same as last week. And I feel like he said about 6 words. 7 words. And sorry, you guys had to watch me count that out on my fingers in real time.
That was good.
Yeah, no.
Good counting.
Took you guys behind the curtains there. I think we can all imagine we can close our eyes, have seen Quinn on Saturday, heard what he said about Monday. I feel like we all kind of got an idea of exactly what he means. Like, he said nothing, and yet I was like, good answer, Sark. I'm good. I have a mental picture of what we're talking about.
More of that relative mobility, right?
Yes.
You can know kind of what to expect.
Did you curse when he took off?
What's that
Like
now?
what was your reaction just to the Quinn long run in the first quarter that seemed about as unthinkable as anything else that happened in that game?
I didn't plan to have the image of Case McCoy in my head, but it did flash into my head. But the thing I mean, other than just the obvious reaction you'd have as a fan, my first reaction was like, looks pretty mobile, looks relatively mobile. Like he made, he hit that line, and that wasn't like 5 yards he was trying to get there. Like that was a good distance.
Like 29 yards.
Yeah. What he needed 26, right? Is that what it was? Needed 26, got 28 or whatever it was.
That bad. I don't remember what it was.
Or maybe
it was that long.
Maybe needed 21 and got 20, whatever it was. Like it was a good, it was a haul. And once you see the replay of it, you could see him laboring a little bit. As far as I was away from Quinn at that moment, he looked like he was running pretty fluidly to me. So yeah, I thought that was sort of a box check. Honestly, I thought, okay, ankle's doing pretty well.
Couple of thoughts. Number one, if you guys are going to do things like remember 85% or It's Austin happened in in January of 2011. Someone brought it up yesterday to me.
Damn.
If you guys are going to do that, then relatively mobile has to be set. It has to be like a running joke forever.
Relatively mobile.
Because the entire game, I would watch him and go, you know what? Yeah, he is relatively mobile. It's as if never has a two-word expression ever perfectly described what we actually watched on Saturday with Quinn Ewers. Look, we'll get back to that. It's going to be a full Monday show.
Yeah, there's a lot going on today.
There's a lot going on, but we teased recruiting. We don't want to get so far into the show that people that wanted to watch about recruiting, and there's so much. There's so much. We want to make sure that we give you the goods, and we'll circle back around. Hell, even Sarkeesian was asked about signing day on Wednesday, I think before he received his first true Georgia question. So it kind of is what it is. Chad, I'll start here. I guess we'll go to Jamie French after that. And there's about a half dozen 5-stars that we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to some decommits and expected decommits and all that stuff. Portal, a lot of stuff. A couple of months ago, I was talking to the Wolf. I was talking to the Wolf. And the Wolf just flat out said, hey, man. And the Wolf all offseason, this entire recruiting year, his whole attitude has essentially been, man, don't. He just hasn't cared about anything that's happened prior to November. And even in the beginning of November, I don't think he truly cared. He told me months ago, we will see more flips in November and December than we've ever seen in any year in college football recruiting, and that it will be obscene. And, he was talking it out. He was like, look, schools won't know really what they really need until you get to November and December. They'll have seen their teams. They'll know what injuries or whatever it is that they think they may need. They're not going to really know until November and December. The NIL negotiating process is only going to pick up in November and December. And this is one of the things that's, I think, happened with Joseph Mbachu, who decommits from Texas yesterday. As one person told me in the last 48 hours, Florida is in YOLO mode. They've got a head coach that they really don't know if he's going to be around beyond next season. They do have a young quarterback in DJ Lagway that makes you feel like, boy, they should be good. They got the hard part figured out. And I'm told that like Florida is throwing out $1 million offers in NIL to regular old guys. The type of prospects that I would tell you, man, those only hit 1 out of 5 times. Don't lose sleep over them. You got to know what the data tells us. And those guys are getting close to $1 million. And so what's happening is in these last couple, not really the last couple of weeks, but even in the last couple of days, it's been a free-for-all. It is kids taking unofficial visits, and we've seen a few of those. Where even Texas commitments have just got. Josiah Sharma just went to USC yesterday. What?
Wow.
What do you mean a bunch of recruits just went to USC? Well, they had an event. So there's a lot of wait and see, and I can't help but be reminded of what the Wolf told me. This is what he predicted would happen.
Yeah.
This is our new norm, and that why the hell is anybody worried about what happens in July or August or September? It doesn't matter until we get to these final hours, and there's a big, gigantic game of chicken being played on the NIL front, and you've got situations with Texas where, look, let's say that Florida went to Joseph Mbachu and said $750,000. Are you going to do that if you're Texas? Really? For a guy that would you be better served spending that money in the portal and getting more of a guarantee on the box than spending $750,000 on a 2 or 3 year project? I think Texas, in some of these instances, they're going to lose guys.
Yeah.
And I think the other team's just going to have been a little bit more desperate. Yeah. And Texas if Texas is like, we've got $20 million-ish to spend on NIL, where is that money going? And when you see late peel-offs, I think at this late hour, I mean, let's just not be naive about what's happening. Florida, I would bet my house on, provided an NIL offer. I don't know if it's a guarantee. Like it's hard to know. But they're going YOLO. They are throwing caution into the wind and saying by any means necessary, because if it doesn't work out, these dudes will all portal out anyway. So it's really kind of a 1-year commitment to try to make sure that thing doesn't sink into the ocean. And if you're Texas, you're like, well, wait a minute. That's as much money as we've basically given to 5 stars. Why are we going to do that? Is that our new precedent? And almost certainly the answer, at least at this point, is nah, man, we're not going to do that. Like that money can be better invested elsewhere. But what does it mean? You lose a guy that you'd like to have kept. They clearly wanted Mbachu, Chad.
Right. So
but they didn't want him that bad.
Yeah. So Mbachu flips from Texas to Florida a week, I think it was, after
8 days.
8 days after committing to Texas. Catch, would you tell a Texas fan, whoever they're about to lose as a flip, would you tell them to look for a flip to replace it? Or would you tell them to calm down and it will be replaced at some point, but it might not be a flip. It may be a portal. It may be a signee you're not thinking about. Like, how would you tell them to process what's on the other side of it? If you get what I'm asking.
Well, let me answer a question with a question. And this is a great question, so we can spend a couple of moments talking about it. Let's go back to the portal last year. Think about, what's the kid's name that went to Oklahoma?
Dominic Williams?
Yeah. Thank you.
Was that it? Yeah.
You're just going to have to forgive me. I can remember almost everything, but I'm going to forget some portal names. The ones that don't come, I'm probably just going to forget.
Yeah,
but
the names are tough.
Yeah, but right about the time Dominic Williams was the public $800,000, $1 million, right about the time that was a thing, a real thing. That dude was looking for $1 million. What did we say? Do you remember?
Said, good luck.
Well,
take it if you can get it. Texas ain't paying that.
The thing that we said also was if it's going to cost $1 million to get that guy, why not just get into the Walter Nolan sweepstakes?
Yeah.
And give him 1.4. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
If it's $1 million for a guy you don't even know is going to start.
Yeah, you might as well just you maybe should have just if you're fighting for that, you probably should have fought for that first guy.
So, if the Joseph Mbachus of the world are asking for $750,000, right? What would you think to yourself at that point?
that would be I would think there's probably somewhere else to spend it.
And it's and to finish out the full answer,
And it's not him.
Go big.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we're going to see in these last 72 hours, I think we're going to see Texas go for the big fish.
Mm-hmm.
They are not going to sweat some of these players getting enhanced NIL deals. I think, and look, would they maybe have to adjust in a year from now if it's like, you know what, that was the market changing and you couldn't have guessed in 3 months that this would be the going rate, or, because we got to remember all of these college programs are thinking internally, we've got $20 million to spend now. Now, maybe not a full 20, because maybe you were a team that was spending 10, but now there are rules that say you can spend 20 and everybody's going to be spending 20. You have to spend 20. So, you know what this is? This is like after a new TV deal in the NFL or in the NBA or something. And it's like, well, the salary cap just went up $148 million. and suddenly teams have money to spend. And it's like, 100 million, 18 months. And it's like, we have money to spend. These teams may not be quite thinking about it in celebratory terms, but they do have money to spend. If you are in the Big Ten, or if you are in the SEC, or, Georgia, Alabama, they're going to spend their full allotment. You cannot be poor. You can't be the Oakland A's of the SEC. So Everybody's going to be spending. So what we have is a talent pool right now, and it's why the portal chat is going to be bonkers. Everybody's going to be flush with cash. Everybody will have cash. And you have some programs that might say, we need a starting quarterback. How much money do we have to spend? Well, we only spent $8 million last year. Oh, okay. Are we going to spend the full 20? Well, I guess we kind of have to. Do you guys care how we spend the remaining 12?
Yeah.
And if the answer is do what you got to do, coach.
Yeah.
This to me, this is Chad. This is a big part of the conversation that I think everybody needs to be hearing, because I don't think recruiting and what's about to happen in the portal, I don't think there's a full set of clarity. I don't think people realize Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, Ole Miss, they've been the ones that have been spending all of the money. Everybody's heard Ohio State, $20 million roster. Well, they're all going to have $20 million rosters starting next year. And not everybody's come close to spending 20. So I think that, we saw it in volleyball, the pitcher for Stanford that transferred to Texas Tech. They gave that girl like $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was.
Yeah.
We may see a lot more in college football this year. Some of these schools, and I think Florida's a prime example. They didn't have a $20 million roster. They are last second Hail Mary YOLOs in a lot of places. And you're going to have to survive that a little bit this year.
We got super chats that have come in. We will get to those. We appreciate everybody jumping in. We're over 1,000 folks in the Specs chat already. We do appreciate you. Real quick, a non-super chat answer. Was there some sort of OB bet where Chad has to wear a certain color? Banks, I have to wear this to TCH Social Austin on Saturday. I will be doing that for the SEC title game. Come on out and see us on Saturday. Let me make sure look at this. They're getting back together. They're getting back together. These two guys are going to find out who's the SEC champion. $1 draft, $2 jellyfish starts at 2 p.m. We'll be there at 3 p.m. for the game. Catch, I listened to the
Hey, put that back up real quick. There's a Jeopardy answer in this graphic.
Mm-hmm.
Which game in college football had the worst combined quarterback play from both teams over 4 combined quarters for $500?
What was October 19th?
I mean, we're not gonna have time to really dig into this today. But oh my God, the quarterback play in that game was
It's
so
crazy.
wretched. And somebody asked me earlier in a super chat on the Monday Overreaction show, what do I think is going to be the difference in the game? And it's like, well, if either of those teams could just get okay quarterback play, that might actually do it.
You'd have to think they're both just so hungry not to play like that again. It's going to be a fascinating matchup.
Combined 7. So, each quarterback played 4 quarters. In the 8 combined quarters, those two guys each had less than 100 quarterback rating. 7.
Jesus.
All 4 quarters for Beck, he played below that level, which would make him the worst quarterback in the country statistically. Yeah. He was that for 4 quarters, and his team won by 2 scores.
Yeah, and these are good defenses. Let's be clear. These are 2 good defenses, but if you watched it, it was not just about defense. It is going to be crazy the next time. Let's clear out some of these super chats. If you want to throw us one, it'll go to the top. I don't know that there's a ton of recruiting here, but we'll get through there, get back to the recruiting stuff. Oscar started us off with 1999. Chad, I'm sorry, but all this hype around Kyle Field is too much. Aggies think it's some crown jewel of football. You don't win there. 500 against SEC teams at home since joining. Enough with the Kyle Field circle jerkle. Wow, circle jerkle. Which,
I actually approve of that usage of the word jerkle.
What a good band they were back in the day. I saw Circle Jerkle at Emo's Catch in like 98, right as they were on their way up. What a good band. Oscar, appreciate the 1999. If y'all want to come out to TCH Social this week and ask me what I thought of the Kyle Field thing, it doesn't need to take over the show, but I don't think that's a horrible point from Oscar. All right, so let's hit this one. Jake with a 999. Do you think the way Sark approaches wide receivers in the portal could be a cause for wide receiver high school recruits to take pause? Lots of talent on the roster with more coming, yet we expect him to take 2 to 3 portal wide receivers. Catch, it's a conversation we had at the beginning of last year, right? In terms of a guy named Jonte Cook, and look how that ended up.
I think the answer to your question, Jake, is yes. I can tell you that there's one prominent wide receiver coach that has taken notice, trains guys on the side kind of wide receiver coach who's been like, why would I send my guys to Texas ever? And we've done this show before, actually. So the answer is yes. It was really important that Ryan Wingo, I think, have kind of the season that he's had this year. Now he's the example instead of Jonte Cook. They'll be able to say Jonte Cook wasn't good enough. Ultimately, if you're good like Ryan Wingo is, you play. If you're not as good and consistent as Ryan Wingo, you end up like Jonte Cook, and none of these guys believe they'll be Jonte Cook. They all look at this and go, there may be some 5 stars that miss, but it's not going to be me. I'm not the confirmation bias kicks in like a mother.
They think they'll be Wingo.
Oh, yeah, or better.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I can do more than Wingo. Wingo couldn't catch a cold at those camps. No, I'm good. So they all think they're the exception. And what Texas really needed was for Wingo to play well enough that it was like, oh, okay, well, big-time guys will play. Jonte Cook is a little bit of an aberration. Like I said, so Texas will be fine. But yes, that's something that they'll have to combat for sure. And deservedly, Texas will go into the portal and take a couple of guys. And all Sark really needs to say is, look, survival of the fittest, man. We're looking for dogs. And we're going to go get dogs however we have to get them. And if you don't think you can be a big dog, maybe you should go to Texas Tech. And, I think Wingo was very quietly a really important part of future wide receiver recruiting.
By the way, Catch, from a Sark scheming standpoint, do you know what I tell you right before the snap if you tell me that Ryan Wingo is going to be covered by Scooby Williams? One word will pop out of my mouth. You know what it is?
Go.
Timeout. Timeout. Scooby Williams covering Ryan Wingo. That's brilliant play calling. It was such a good route. It was such a good throw. It only resulted in a field goal, I think. I think that's the drive that made it 17-0. But holy hell, what a play call from Sark on that one. That is just weaving his way through that defense, and it's Scooby Williams trying to deal with it, and Scooby had no chance. That's brilliant stuff.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was a beautiful throw by Ewers.
God, it was.
And at his best, that's Quinn Ewers at his best.
Yep, that one. Hell, the one to Golden was gorgeous.
It was, but we know that that's like a 1 out of 15.
Yeah,
it's not. That, if you're a Texas fan, you don't care. Thank God it happened in the A&M game, right? You're happy with, but you also know that they took a couple of other shots, and it was like, where's the ball going? But we know what it is at this point. Like, nobody should be shocked. That ball that he threw to Wingo, that's his bread and butter when he's on.
Agreed.
And it is the ball that all season long, when people have been talking about, why don't they throw it deep? You and I have had show after show after show and I've shown the data that a year ago, that's where he made his money. And this year they have not done that anywhere near, both at the rate and the success rate at the same time. But it shows you when they do successfully that those plays provide points, and they are there for the taking. It was nice to see them. I know you weren't excited, but it was nice to see them have that still in the bag of tricks, because sometimes it just feels like they're going east and west and west and east, and it's like what do you call those things? A metronome.
Yep.
It's like watching the offense do that back and forth. I'm sure that scared the crap out of A&M. It was like, oh God, okay, they can do that. And every player in that defense, certainly in the back end of it, would have been a little bit more cognizant of don't cheat too much. And Texas wasn't even throwing the ball a ton by that point. But yeah, man, that was one of my favorite Quinn throws of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. Tracy throws in a $5 super chat, says, Jeff, we are at the SEC championship game. Based on your previous Texas, Georgia, all 22, what would you change?
I'll tell you what, Tracy. By the way, Tracy, we owed you a question, Chad.
I saw that, from the earlier show today. I saw it.
So, Tracy, take your time. You put like free super chat so that we make sure we see it.
Mm-hmm.
And we owe you one. But I would say, Chad, let's circle back to this. Tracy, I hate to make you wait till the end of the show. I want to pull up the all 22 and take a look at it and and then I can do it from there.
Yeah. Okay. Tracy, thank you very much for that. This one just came in and it's on the recruiting stuff. So let's hit this real quick first. Roan, I will get to your comment about Kyle Field in a second, I promise. James 499, would you take Hudson in the transfer portal if he wanted to be at Texas and Sark allowed it, or big fishing with the Moore family out of Duncanville?
James, good super chat. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is three things. One, would I take Michael Hudson? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We're talking about five. We're talking about a 5-star here.
Yeah, would I take him? There's only a handful of those guys in existence.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would take him. Would I prioritize him? That is the second question. And I think that is the most important question. And I don't know the answer to that. I know this. If you'll remember last year in the portal, do you remember how patient Texas was? Deuce Wells goes into the portal. There were a number of really good players that went into the portal. And Texas just chilled. They were like, no, we're going to wait. It was like in the movie Braveheart when the Army's coming at them and they're like, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, hold the line. It was a little bit like that in the portal. Sark just kept waiting. And you'll remember they got punished for it because they were waiting on Isaiah Bond to go into the portal, and then he didn't. And they were like, for a second, there was a little bit of, they could have done more. And then Saban retires and Bond then goes into the portal. And so, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texas is patient. I wouldn't be surprised if, and the other thing Texas and a few of these schools like to do, let's just say you're Ohio State. Let's take Texas out of the equation in the event that someone takes it literal and suggests that like I'm describing something that is illegal. But let's say you're Ohio State and an agent of a potential starting quarterback that would replace Will Howard. Let's say that guy's been contacting you, letting you know, hey, FYI, I think we're thinking about going into the portal. Want to give you a heads up. And it's like, well, we're going to be looking for a portal quarterback. Do you want to be our portal quarterback? And that guy will be like, yeah, let's do it. What then often happens is that school will tell that kid and his agent, don't announce you're going to the portal until right before the deadline. Because what they're afraid will happen, kid puts himself into the portal and announces to everybody that he's out. And suddenly, remember all that money that I just told you that has to be spent? They want to spend it. So one of the things to keep an eye on in the portal is what happens at the very end of the portal this year, because a lot of those situations will have been framed by schools that are saying, look, we got a deal. This is how we want this to be executed. And will that player either be okay with that? Will his representation be okay with that or not? But just something to keep an eye on. I don't think Decorian Moore is going to happen. I did not have him mentioned to me as one of the big names that Texas is really in on in these last 48 hours. But your head's in the right place. Yes, they're looking for names that move the meter, and Decorian Moore fits the Texas profile to such a T. But I don't expect he's among the big fish they've got lines in the water for, truly.
So there is a story out there that Micah Hudson is going to be in the portal. And remember, if you want another wacky day, the day we find out who's in the playoff is the day the portal opens. Same day. It's December 8th through 28th, I think, is the next portal window. So it's going to be absolutely crazy.
And Texas is going to have some guys going to portal.
Yeah. And
it's going to happen as they're getting ready for the playoff. The sport has done this to themselves. You know what's going to happen? People are going to get pissed at the players. They're going to say, these guys are leaving their teams, leaving them in a lurch. These are bad guys. Doesn't have to be like this. The sport decided it didn't like the players having as much power as they did.
Mm-hmm.
So they've taken their time away from them. The players did not create a rule that says we have to enter the portal before the playoff teams' seasons end. It's a rich man's problem. There are only 12 teams in the country that will have to worry about this. But the decision makers basically said, screw those 12 teams. When Texas has 15 guys enter the portal, fans don't get mad. They have no choice. They have no choice, and we're going to see it. We're going to see hundreds of major Power Four players enter the portal in the next couple of weeks, and it's going to happen to Ohio State. It's going to happen to Oregon. It's going to happen to Texas. It's going to happen to Georgia. It's going to happen, and everybody needs to prepare themselves for the timing. Will be awful for the teams that are getting ready for the playoffs because it is a distraction. 15 guys, 15 guys entering the portal before a playoff game? Yeah. But these are the rules the way they've been constructed. And I'm just saying right now, don't get mad at the athletes when it happens.
Yeah.
Don't be like, oh, this is proof that the sport I can't even love this sport anymore. It's like pro football. No. The NCAA did this. They did this, not the players. Because they could keep the portal open through mid-January, at which point you would give support, and maybe it'll go back next year. Maybe this thing's flexible and they'll move it around. But if you're in the playoffs, it's going to suck, man. You're going to have you might have a national championship game where combined the two teams have had like 30, 35 guys leave. That sucks. But It's the world we live in.
All right, we got some super chats. I'm going to get to the one about Kyle Field, but I do feel like a slight rant could be created. So before that, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to talk about sinus and snoring specialists. And really the only two good things about Saturday night for me. I was with my parents, and my mom made one of her famous roast beef sandwiches, and I slept pretty well because of sinus and snoring specialists. They can make sure you're sleeping well also. Get rid of your sleep apnea, get rid of the snoring, get rid of all the sinus issues that you've had. This is the place. 601-0303, sinussnoringent.com. There might not be a better gift that you could give yourself this Christmas than just the gift of sleeping better, resting better, feeling better. You'll exercise better. Everything will be better if you get that breathing stuff figured out. Trust me. I did it in 2017, and I've never regretted it. Sinus and snoring specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. All righty. Let's get to this particular super chat, and here it is. SRone45. $5. Chad, Anwar said the atmosphere in Kyle Field is like a glorified Texas Tech. Thoughts? Roan, I started to get upset when I heard Anwar say it. I listened to his explanation, and I kind of get it. Overall, I am disappointed kind of with what I saw and what I felt and what I heard. Felt like one team was playing the game because they got to. The other team was playing it because they had to. I also didn't realize that one of the head coaches in this team didn't understand the theory of field goals. He had an opportunity to let his fans. The fans were jazzed. The fans were ready to go electric. The fans were ready to go off. And he was like the Stones who just showed up and said, we're not playing Jumpin' Jack Flash tonight. Really? So you're just going to leave us sitting here? Yep. That's exactly what we're going to do. The coaching malpractice certainly didn't help, but that crowd did feel like they didn't know how to fully dial in to what was happening in front of them. It was a weird version. Plus, Anwar's in a stuffy press box. It's a weird setup for the press box. He literally can't see the big scoreboard from that press box. I've never understood why that's true, but it's true. So I've been in the press box Anwar was in. It is a weird vantage point in that stadium. So I wasn't upset at him by the end. It should tell Aggies a lot that Anwar said that. And I really hope that my people are more prepared for 2026 than they were for 2024. I saw frat guys setting up a tailgate at 1:20 p.m.
What?
I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you, Roan, for your super chat. I appreciate it. All right, let's clean up a $9.99 from Brad. Catch, can you reiterate your analogy from the postgame show of the Rick James, Dave Chappelle, F your couch skit? Those who missed it need to hear it. Ha ha, SEC, SEC, SEC.
I remember it, but I don't even remember the context.
I believe you were making the reference to this. It's a skit where he just puts his feet all over the furniture.
Well, I know that. The skit. I just was I saying that that's what Texas did in College Station? Was that they went in and put their feet up on the white couch? And
I think it was, honestly, I think what you got to was sort of, I felt like it was a two-pronged discussion because you were discussing them going to Atlanta as well.
Well, all I can tell you is that was Saturday.
Yeah. Well, this is where I think
I say all kinds of funny shit every day. Like, it's hard to keep track of it all.
Brad, I think the beauty of this, if you're a Texas fan, is a twofold process. You just did part of it. The part of it regionally was you get to say you went to the SEC title game in year one, and the Aggies know they've been there 13 seasons and they've never been to Atlanta. So you wanted to be able to say that. Now you can. But there's a whole nother group of people now you might get to impress. Because Georgia fans don't care. Bama fans don't care. Maybe LSU fans don't even care. Because they've played for it and they've won it. Because they don't want to hear y'all say, yeah, the Aggies, Georgia fans would be like, who? Who are you talking about? That group that's never been here? Because we live here. This is our town. We are Atlanta. Four in a row.
Defend Aggies for a second. I want to defend Aggie fans.
Okay.
I don't know what our expectations for that crowd is supposed to be when the football team's just getting its ass kicked.
Oh, I agree. Now, trust me, that's why I'm not telling you it's all on a crowd. It just all didn't come together for multiple reasons, mainly football, because, again,
look, here's what I saw. I saw a crowd that showed up and was ready to go. And then they were down 17-0 at halftime. And there's no crowd anywhere. Agreed. Show me the crowd. Somebody in the chat. I will apologize live on YouTube if someone can point to me the example of, remember that time in a big game where the home team went down by 3 touchdowns or 3 scores and the crowd didn't care. So not only does that happen, but then in the third quarter, Texas just kept dominating their ass.
Right. Well, that's the beauty of, for Texas, and this is the ultimate reward as a Texas fan. If you're a fan of that team, you did it more than anything. Like your team did that. Sark did that. Think about it. If the pick 6 makes it 7-0 A&M, it's a lot different than where it was. Because at the moment that happens, like Texas is drilling the Aggie. They're just stomping their way to 20-0 minimum. And then all of the sudden it's going the other way. It was a different feel. So you're right, Catch. And again, I'm just telling you, there were a lot of ingredients to it. And there was a little bit of a disconnection, and it did have to do with the football team. And I would argue a head coach and an offensive coordinator that have no clue what they are. No idea. Yeah. They don't know their identity. They don't know what they do well. They don't know what they do poorly. And it was coaching malpractice at the beginning, and it was even worse coaching malpractice later. And they didn't want to present Kyle Field with a 1-score game. Could have done it. They had 2 different ways to do it. They didn't want it. They didn't want to do it. They got a pretty good defense and a good kicker, and they didn't care. They didn't care for 17-10 or 17-13. It was so disturbing to watch as a football fan. Even if I didn't like either one of these teams, it is a disturbing thing to watch when in a rival game like that, with all that importance, you just don't care. You go full Tom Herman and just don't care. You know, if you kick it through those goalposts, they'll give, shut up. Why would I want 3 points here? Idiot. That's the issue in that game for me above all else when it comes from the Aggie side.
Real quick, just because you and I haven't had a chance to do this. My whole thing about going for it on 4th down, it's not what the book says, really. It's about, tell me the risk versus the reward. Mm-hmm. For instance, think back to when Barry Switzer went for it on 4th down against the Eagles in, what was it, 95?
Right.
It wasn't that he did it. It was that he did it on his own 29-yard line.
Right.
Game context and like where it's not, you can't just look at the math through the vacuum of, well, the book says to do this. The thing about that game, that exact moment, was that the upside is no matter what you do, you're still down by a score. That's the upside. You're either going to be down by 7 or you're going to be down by 3, but you're going to have to get the ball back and score. Sure. What's the downside? We're still down 2 scores at that time of the game. So if it's the first quarter, I get it. If it's the second quarter, I get it. If it's even the third quarter, like, okay, I get it. If it's the fourth quarter and we're 5 minutes-ish left in the game.
5 minutes to go.
You got to get the points. You have to make the last 5 minutes matter. And instead, he took the option on what, let's admit it, it's a 50-50. That's what it is. It's 50-50. I don't like 50-50 if the downside is game over.
It's not 50-50 if you're running that play.
Because the upside isn't if we make it, we win the game 100%. Well, no, it's not nearly that high. Oh, it's 75% that we win a game. Well, no, it's not even that high. Like, you still have to do a lot after, no matter what you do. You can't take the option where you take that away from you. to work that hard to get yourself into a last 5 minutes of the game. It's one possession. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
A game.
Yeah.
It wasn't a game at that point, Catch. It was not a game until they scored on that possession.
You're right. And
it was 5 minutes of a parade route at that point. It didn't matter. You were going to have Texas completely puke on their shoes to blow that thing at that point.
And you know what?
Done. Kirk Herbstreit said it on the broadcast. If they don't get this, game over.
Yeah.
And Chris Fowler tried to talk him out of it, but it's like, no, man, it's done. They can't chase 17-7 if they screw this up.
Not enough time. Not enough time left.
God, and they tippy-toed into it. Let's walk the kicker out 3 steps, bring him back, call the timeout. You could just feel the dumbass play they were going to run. Catch the SEC Twitter handle called it the worst call of the entire SEC season in 2024.
Oh, my God. Really?
That's how bad it was. And then Texas fans got to go back to that 4th down that Texas stopped against K-State and goes, yeah, this is the last time Collie Klein had a big one against the Longhorns. I'm like, oh, good God. There it is. There it is. There it is. Well played, Ethan Burke. Well done. Huge play for Texas. And the Aggies did not.
Guys, let's just not get too crazy with that play. Somebody asked me earlier today if that play, which play would I choose? That one or Stoney Clark versus Oklahoma? And I was like, okay, we'll settle down.
Stoney Clark.
Settle down.
Out of 10.
One play literally won the game, and the other play won the right for it to not become a game. They are two separate things.
I was going to say, and one play was like an actual offensive play call from a real football team, and the other one felt like
it's going to bother you all. The next 12 months are going to suck for Chad. He's never not going to be upset about, just so you guys know, the sheep jokes, they don't work. But if throughout the year you just randomly throw in game management barbs at Chad, or like, just say take the 3 points randomly in the chat for the next 12 months.
That's it.
It will truly remind him of the thing that is still up in his craw on a Monday. I know we've got super chats, and I see one. Oh, wow. I see one for 17-7. Is that what that is?
The 17-7. That's well done. Hooked on the horns. The $17.70.
I like that.
That's well done. Fun fact, Texas A&M's offense hasn't scored on Texas in 4,757 days. So it could carry the
I made this reference. You haven't seen the movies, right? You're not a Lord of the Rings guy yet. But
not yet.
You shall not pass. And then they didn't pass. They did not get to the goal line.
Yeah, and it should have been obviously a story of Texas's defense not pitching a shutout, but pitching like no touchdowns, not allowing a touchdown, because there should have been field goals kicked. But again, when you don't want that, I just lose it. I will never get mad at a team that loses being who they are. I really get pissed when you're stupid on purpose. I really get pissed at stupid on purpose.
Hey, Chad,
drives me crazy.
That may be why you and I like each other so much, because at our core, that's our biggest pet peeve.
It drives me crazy. Catch, I sat in 2008 and I watched every second of OU. That Sam Bradford OU team beat A&M 66-28. And I was not more upset at that group than I was upset on Saturday night. Because in 2008, they just got flat whooped. They got whooped. Yeah. OU blocked the crap out of them. And I knew it was going to happen.
Flat out whooped on Saturday too.
And
I can't believe that Elko used the language that he used in the postgame.
Yeah, said they physically decimated us or whatever it was. You think about it, though, Catch. They went to Auburn, and they lost in 4 overtimes and got whipped at the same time. That's hard to do. And in this one, they got completely whipped 17-7, which is hard to do.
What you don't want to do is cut a promo that the other school uses in recruiting for 12 months. You know, like you don't want UT to be able to put a little postcard with they physically decimated us in quotes. And then it's just like, just wanted to say hi, Coach Sark. Like, you know, what needs to come out of that game is we need to do better. I can't believe if I was an Aggie, I would flip my shit over that.
It is interesting that the guy that couldn't figure out his mouth between the words Texas and Auburn and couldn't drink water normally, all of a sudden comes up with physically decimated after that game.
That would, and it wouldn't be like, oh, as a fan, you saw the game. They did physically decimate A&M. It was way more one-sided physically than I thought that game was going to be.
No, it could have been 31-0.
Yeah. And honestly, if Quinn doesn't throw the pick six and they punch that in, it probably is 38-0 at the end of the game.
Oh, it could have gone. Yeah, it could have turned into a boat race quick.
Because that's one of those, like, once it gets 24-0, the game's really over. And you got to remember, Texas gets the ball back again. They went right back down the field. So you can close your eyes and imagine in a world where that pick six doesn't happen and you just say, hey, let's eliminate the turnovers from that game in the second half. It's 31-0. 31-0 early fourth quarter. Like, that thing could have been really one-sided. In the end, it didn't. But if I was an A&M fan, I'm not mad that if you say that to some A&M alums at like the touchdown club or whatever the hell it is that the Aggies would do on a Saturday or something like that. If he shows up and questions are being asked and he's like, we got our ass physically decimated and that can't ever happen again. I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. I don't need my head coach.
Yeah.
15 minutes after the loss that's going to define the offseason for A&M, I don't need that. Because I would know, oh, man, as if Texas needed anything else. You just gave them that quote.
And unfortunately for Aggie's catch, they're going to have to live with a little bit of it because he is like in the devil angel analogy, in terms of like meathead coaches that are a little sloppy in press conferences, like Tom Herman or Lane Kiffin could be the devil. Elko's the angel, but he's still sloppy. He doesn't feel wicked, but he's sloppy. He is a sloppy press conference guy. He has been since day one, and we just witnessed different versions of it. And you're probably right.
I could put up with a lot of things.
All he had to say was,
you have to be intellectually smart enough. Look, you and I do shows we've done hundreds and thousands of shows. We know, like we know some things you just can't say. Some things you can think them, can't say them.
Right.
You have to have a head coach when he goes to a press conference, and Sark definitely has that.
Oh, no doubt.
When Sark is asked a question, you can almost see it wash over his face when he's like, well, I won't say that, but here's what I will say. You can't be sloppy at the press conference. What he actually said, this is the quote.
Yeah, I haven't even heard the quote. You'll be shocked to know I did not listen to that side of post.
I looked it up because I knew the word wasn't decimated.
Okay.
Hats off to them. They physically annihilated us.
Annihilated. Jesus. Okay.
Why would you ever say that about anybody? I've never heard a coach ever describe their football team that way.
Because he was mad, because he was emotional, he was upset or whatever, and it just he got out of control. That's kind of the way he's been these last few weeks.
Let me tell you what that also says. Mike Elko does not give a shit about any of those players he has up front. And I don't mean that like in a mean way. I mean, when a coach says that means in his mind, all of you jokers are replaceable.
Think about it. Yeah, think about it. The starting left tackle on the other team left really early when there was no score, and he still said it. That's what pisses him off.
Remember how Sark treated Hudson Card? Where he was the starting quarterback, and he thought one way about Hudson Card going into that Arkansas game, and then after it happened, I mean, the way he treated it is almost as if Sark felt like Hudson Card had betrayed him. You know, it's like, here I am making you the starting quarterback, and you embarrass me.
Right.
And then it didn't matter that Casey Thompson was playing with like a toaster on his hand.
Yeah, you can't.
I'm not going back to Hudson Card. That quote tells me, hey, man, they're going to be looking in the portal for some dudes. And if any of you guys think y'all are bigger than the program, if any of those guys have given him any grief whatsoever because, hey, man, we make a lot of money in NIL and, we're your best players. We're your best. That quote tells me my Elko's getting him some new dudes.
Yeah,
they annihilated us. Think about how pissed, how angry inside you would have to be to say that out loud.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that a defensive coordinator would say. But they don't give them press conferences after the game for reasons, and that's the reason he can't say that as the head coach.
You know what? I'm going to do a Google search later on the word coach annihilated. I'm going to see if anything pops up other than Elko. I'm telling you, I don't think I have ever heard a head coach say that about his team. And
I don't know.
Use that phrasing.
I don't know if I have either. And if you get beat 68-0, maybe it is warranted. But to play that game and ignore those field goals and to have that offense called like that and have my defense, if I'm Elko, have my defense stand up to the degree that it was 17-7. Could have been a one-score game. But again, you don't know the rules of the game. Don't step up and use big words.
Hey, you know who else that calls out?
For no reason.
His coaching staff.
Yeah.
That was also a message to, I've told this story a million times, but I always say, I remember talking to Bobby Kennedy 3 weeks after they won the national championship in January of 2006. He's out on the road recruiting, and he literally asks me on the phone if I think he's safe from losing his job. And I'm like, Bobby, y'all just won a national championship and you're a pretty badass recruiter. Like, what are we talking about? And he's like, hey, man, you never know. Every guy on that A&M staff needs to have Bobby Kennedy anxiety levels because you are not Bobby Kennedy. You did not win a national championship. You do not have the skins on the wall. You just got drug at home, and your head coach, when he says annihilated, that is an implication on himself too. You don't get to be, when you're the head coach and you use the word annihilate, like that is the ultimate reflection. And so that guy's going to go have his staff meeting on Sunday. It's going to be a whole lot of guys. What the hell was that?
Yeah, I am so glad now that we've gotten to this part, Catch, because I got all the way through whatever I got through Saturday, Sunday. I did not realize he said that until today. So there you go. Now we can add on. We can add on to my feelings on a Monday. Benjamin with a 99.99. Thank you, Benjamin. I held back a little bit on Saturday because you weren't on the show, Chad. So I wanted to donate a bill to help dry those Aggie tears, my brother. Benjamin, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. There were a few of them, and they grew in number after I found out that Sloppy Meathead said what he said.
Benjamin needs to go back, Chad. Put that back up for a second. Benjamin.
Of course, I got rid of it, too. Hang on.
Just a suggestion for Benjamin.
1 sec. There it is.
Because Benjamin doesn't have an S in his name. So what I think Benjamin should do is change the J into the $sign.
Oh, like in the middle of Benjamin?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
He's Benjamin Blackwell, but the J is a bill. I'm just saying, Benjamin, it's my suggestion. From now on, you get to be Benjamin Blackwell, but with a $sign for the J.
I like it. I like it. All right. There you go. Benjamin, thank you for that. We have other super chats that we need to get to. Let's get to this one. I think it's the biggest number I see now. Cinco de Mayo, $10. Catch with NIL funds. Who dictates how many and how much is allocated per year, per recruit? Is this Sark or Brandon Harris or both?
Oh, I mean, it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but yeah, your general manager. By the way, this is slightly off topic. The Andrew Luck hire at Stanford as the general manager is something else because they're one of the first programs to come out and say our general manager outranks the head coach. It is the first true professional sports model that we've seen in college. Whereas we've seen a ton of general managers get hired, but it's always in the dynamic that the head coach makes the hire and thus has kind of control over the GM. I've suggested that you ultimately in the future in college football, you need something that's at least kind of an even timeshare. And the head coach is always like the tiebreaker. But it's such a different job in totality that I kind of feel like that guy can't be anybody's water boy to do it truly right. And interesting that Stanford and Andrew Luck, talk about the acorn not falling far from the tree or whatever that expression is. He's essentially become upper management like his old man, like that.
Yeah.
And you know what? If he does a good job, that job either takes him to Texas or Ohio State, or you know what I mean? Like, or he just stays at Stanford forever because he wants to, or that job gets you into the NFL too. Like I have been waiting to see. I could have never guessed that Andrew Luck would be the person that's kind of the thing that I think is the future. But I just think that's all kinds of fascinating because he's going to run that program and have as much influence as anybody. And Cinco, if you were asking this question to Stanford, a Stanford YouTube show, the answer would be Andrew Luck with the head coach's involvement. Now it's at Texas, it's all these other guys, but Sark is the guy running the meeting.
Over 1,600 of you in the Specs chat. We appreciate you. We just crossed over the 1 o'clock hour, which means things could get crazy, but we got a lot of super chats to get to, so may not get too crazy. Here's a reminder about Specs. Thanks to Specs for their great partnership of the chat.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Glad I didn't watch that game in my house. I might not have any bottles of anything left.
Can I tell you my old man, real quick, just confessional time? My old man moment of the weekend.
Sure.
I was exchanging messages with a friend. And I was like, I'm listening to some music in the car as I drive my way up. And one of my favorite songs came on. So I recorded myself singing in its entirety Billy Vera's At This Moment.
Wow.
I'm doing the drive, and so I'm driving and recording a video, but you just got to bear with me. Nobody was around me. It was good. But was I breaking the law? Technically. I mean, and I mean, by the end of it, I'm recording it and I'm driving, but I got into the song, sent it as a joke to my friend.
Okay. The person you were just talking to?
Yes.
Okay.
It was like a 6-minute video.
Okay.
I sent it to them and they were like, hey, I don't know if it's my phone or your phone, but there's no audio on that message. So all it was 6 minutes of me just like.
You recorded just the video part of you
singing.
doing that song?
Yes. I was so upset with myself. I thought, this is really funny. And sure enough, I played it on my phone and there's no audio. I don't know what I did. Is my old man moment of the weekend was sending it was good enough. I think it could have gone viral. I mean, I was into it. And my At This Moment lip syncing video, car karaoke, failed horribly. And now I just don't want to do it anymore. Now it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't even record a video with audio. Let me just retreat into the hole of old manness.
God, that is fantastic. Freaking-tastic. We do have a couple of super chats that we will get to real quick. A reminder about Hay City Store as well. I know some of you have been out there recently. Might be a cool place to go visit as you're getting ready for the holidays. It's always good. I could have used some of that Hay City Store, beautiful comfort food after the game on Saturday night. And for you Texas fans, it can be your celebration food as well. Chicken fried steak, chicken fried pork chop, the grilled pork chop, the blackened pork chop, the pizza, the burgers, the drinks. It's just incredible. Hayes City Store, always ready. It says fresh ingredients, quality taste. Oh, yeah. Both huge understatements. It's some of the best of everything that I've ever had. If you're a key lime pie fan, it's the best key lime pie I've ever had. Go check it out. Hayes City Store out in Driftwood. You've heard us talk about it. Now get out there and be about it at Hayes City Store. All right.
Hey, Chad,
Yes, sir.
I cut you off there for a purpose.
Okay.
I feel like the Super Chats did take over the show, and I'm not mad about it, but I feel like we still haven't. Like before we do buy or sell, we have to talk about, I think, the names in recruiting.
Yeah.
Specifically that everybody needs to be keeping an eye on.
Okay. We see the super chats. We will hit them. We will hit them before we get done. So we've discussed, we started with Mbachu, obviously, in terms of the flip stuff. Give us the other names that you think they need to be paying attention to.
They are not giving up on Michael Fasusi. So I don't know what that means from an NIL perspective, but I asked specifically about Michael Fasusi today, and that pursuit will not stop. Fasusi's been pretty quiet since coming back from A&M. I don't know what to think of that. I have no predictions on the Michael Fasusi recruitment. It feels like the smart money would be on him, I think, staying with Oklahoma. But I keep asking and asking and asking, and sourcing that I think is usually they're not bullish on everything. They're usually more instinctively in a bear market. They just and he told me today, he's like, I'm not going out on a limb on a couple of different, like he's cognizant. Like it's almost like, even though only he and I would know the hit rate, he's pretty like, hey, if I don't believe it, I'm not going to say it. But he won't go on a limb either way with Fasusi. And I keep trying to ask and get a vibe for us. And I just know they're on that situation like stink on poop. So that you'll hear his name for the next 48 hours. And if you're thinking to yourself, that's a wasted cause, I don't get the sense that Texas thinks it is. Number two, and this one I think is really interesting, and this goes back to the conversation that we were just having, but if you're going to lose Joseph Mbachu, and the pricing for Joseph Mbachu is at a rate that you're like, that's dumb. If you're going to spend that money on Joseph Mbachu, why wouldn't you spend a little bit more money for a guy like Justice Terry, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, the number 9 player in America, the number 2 defensive tackle in the country, I guess, out of Manchester, Georgia? Keep an eye on that one. He is uncommitted. He's taking a visit. Took that one in mid-October, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just telling you, Justice Terry is a name that I would keep an eye on for all of the stuff that we've just been talking about, which is, hey, man, we may lose a few fringe guys. How would Texas respond to that? Fuck it. Let's go after the biggest guys possible. And if it's going to be about NIL dollars, then let's not be foolish. Let's just go get it.
Even if it's not the same position, even if you're not replacing the position with the same position, replace the big time with the big time.
They're going to be very aggressive in the portal at defensive tackle. Duh. But yeah, I think, remember, I don't think DeCorian Moore is a guy that they're like, let's go get it. I think Fasusi and Justice Terry are guys that I would just keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And obviously I will, and another interesting one, talking about 5 stars. And I think the update on this guy, Nate Marshall, the edge player, who's currently committed to Auburn, but he's a 5-star guy in the Rivals network. He's basically, You could think of him as a Javian Hilson replacement if they don't get Hilson, who is another name, obviously, you got to keep an eye on. A source told Greg Smith of Rivals, who I think we've had on the show before, that Texas is, quote, a strong possibility for Marshall, who would flip to Texas. The note on our message board says conversations are ongoing and nothing is a done deal with 5 stars, but things do look promising. We'll bring more when I have it. I asked about Marshall, and okay, I'm trying to think about the best way to say it. I read that update on Marshall, and when I asked about Marshall, I was told Fasusi and Terry, like, those are our priorities. And I was like, oh, given that I just heard that about a different 5-star, it made me kind of go, oh. Because if Nathaniel Marshall is telling people, or people close to Nathaniel Marshall, and I'll be honest, I don't know this, and I don't mean to put Greg out, but I'm just assuming that came from Marshall. It doesn't say who it came from. It just has quotes that say it's a strong possibility. So I'm thinking that might have come from Marshall or a parent or something like that. But because I feel like if it wasn't, you'd preface it by saying, talk to somebody at the school, talk to someone familiar, like to just flat out put something in quotes, but then not say who it's from. It's just kind of what I thought of. So if that guy's going to say that, and who knows, maybe this is also all about negotiating. That might be, how do I get 250 more out of Auburn? Well, they know I like Texas.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, Ken, the other thing I heard you mention today on the morning show that's interesting, the whole proximity of this thing is fascinating to me too, because when it comes down to that 11th hour, the out-of-state recruiting for some people, it's like you got to really pay attention to it, because in the end, are these kids going to end up thinking, if the NIL money's pretty good and I can stay closer to home, is that just what I'll end up doing when push comes to shove?
Well, and the local teams are always going to spend more. I mean, it's just, surprise. Who's Florida really going after right now with their NIL money that they're throwing around? In-state guys.
Right.
I mean, it's not rocket science. And so, I can't stress this enough. These next 36, 48 hours it's going to be bananas, because if regular old 4-star guys are getting upwards of like $500,000, $750,000, what does it mean tomorrow if there are coaching meetings all across the country and it's like, okay, how have we done? Well, we've missed out on all of our guys. We just couldn't quite get that defensive tackle that we wanted. All right, well, we got 24 hours. What if we just throw $1 million out there and see if somebody nibbles? It's going to happen. We are going on Wednesday and Thursday to hear, and maybe we won't get the specific dollars, but what have we just talked about? Every school in the country is going to have 20 to play with that's coming out of the athletic department funds. So there's just going to be some wild stuff that happens. And I don't say that to, this isn't me trying to drum up business for Orange Bloods. And, I'm not saying this, we are running a free trial, by the way, but it's not like I have the promotion up and I'm like, it's going to be crazy. I'm not going used car salesman, right? But what I'm telling you is this is the environment that exists in this very moment. And I think in the weeks that follow Wednesday, we're going to hear a lot of stories about Central Florida asked some kid, Central Florida paid $1 million for a kid from Orlando that was committed somewhere. And at the last minute, they were like, we got to spend some of our money. What would behoove us the most? Keep the local guy. I mean, you're just going to see some wild stuff. And, it can't be shocking if Texas both loses a couple of guys and upgrades a couple of guys and lands a couple of big fish. And I think what we'll probably end up doing is say, okay, what is the recruiting class as a whole? And in that last 48 hours, what came in and what went out? And was it a trade you would make? I think that's one of the things we're going to have to see on Wednesday is who signs, and will we look at this and go, well, they got Michael Terry and Michael Fasusi and a couple of other guys, and who do they lose? Mbachu, another guy that will happen tonight who is a low 4-star guy. You know, did we lose Myron Charles? Like that one would sting. And you might say, well, we lost Mbachu and that trio, but we got Fasusi and Michael Terry. That sounds like a trade. You know what I mean? It's like, if this were a fantasy football trade, would you make it? And because some people don't like to trade any players because they just don't like to get rid of the guys that they like. It's like, oh, those are my guys. And it's like, okay, well, forget about your emotional loyalties. Who are the best 2 players? It's like, oh, well, Fasusi and Terry. It's like, okay, so you won the trade. And I think that's the way we may have to look at this is there are going to be some departures. Who comes in? Because I think the departures are going to be the guys who are on the bottom half of the recruiting class. And I think the departures may be guys who belong in the top half.
And to be clear, Catch, when you say Terry, do you mean Michael Terry or Justice Terry?
I was saying Michael Terry, but, Terry's. Texas is in on a number of guys. I don't think you can completely dismiss Nathaniel Marshall either. I only provided the context that I did because the reporting on Marshall today is very optimistic for Texas. And I'm just telling you that behind the scenes, it seems like that kind of update was kind of that, it might be that there's greater importance and emphasis being placed in those other areas. And look, think about it like this. We had this conversation with Brandon Baker, right? You give that guy like $700,000 in NIL, but he doesn't play in year 1. Is that the investment that you want to make? Typically, my sourcing has been pretty open, and it makes sense that if you're going to spend $700,000 on a player, he's got to play. Unless it's a quarterback and it's like you got to develop that guy. Okay. But in general, $750,000, that guy's got to play right away. Nathaniel Marshall is a weak side defensive end. He's a 5-star player. But does he start next year? At his position right now is Trey Moore and Colin Simmons. Whether or not Trey Moore goes pro or not, we know Colin Simmons is a bad mother. And that guy's probably going to be one of the 2 or 3 or 4 best players on the entire team. I don't think Nathaniel Marshall starts and plays much for Texas in 2025. Do I think Justice Terry at defensive tackle might potentially start and play a lot immediately in 2025? Yes, I do. So if you were going to give one of those guys $1 million, Chad, who would you give it to?
Terry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that there is some positional scarcity, and this is a little bit like the NFL draft where it's like, well, we're going to take a safety or a running back in the first round. And it's like, well, that's not where we should. All the data says to do the smart thing. And if at all possible, combine value with need. That's supposed to be the thing you do in the NFL draft. Well, we took the best player on our board. Awesome. Is he going to start? Yes. Major need. Cool. I don't think you can argue that Nathaniel Marshall as an edge player is one of Texas's biggest needs right now. You can. We know that defensive tackle remains the single most critical area of importance in this recruiting class and in terms of adding additional personnel going into next season. The entire defensive tackle rotation essentially needs to be replaced outside of, Alex January played a few snaps, but everybody else is gone. Broughton, gone. Collins, gone. Lole, gone. I mean, just Bill Norton, gone. So they got to have the entire position has to be completely retooled and replaced. So I think if you're going to see Texas spend, I think the player that stands to make the most money in NIL from Texas is Justice Terry. Now, will that be enough to get Justice Terry? I have no idea. Texas is in it, but he's probably got major NIL offers in front of him from everybody. But as the Walter Nolan example from the portal showed a year ago, look, man, the going rate for some of these guys is already close to $1 million. So to go get the best one for $500,000 more, and I don't know the numbers. I'm just literally kind of stream of conscious talking out loud. Who knows? Maybe the marketplace for a Justice Terry is like $3 million. And over 3 years, it would. The numbers I'm using are per year. Per year.
Mm-hmm.
Mbachu, over 3 years, that's like $2 million if he collects on it. So when we talk about the money that some of these guys are getting, we're not talking about a 3-year deal. We're talking about this is essentially what you get when you show up. And I've also heard that there are schools out there that are still cheating that, you know, in an NIL world, you would think, well, there's no more cheating. You can literally pay millions of dollars. Like, who needs a sack of cash? You just pay me the old fashioned way. I'm still hearing that both things are happening, that you'll come across some families who are, and you know what? I hate to say it. I'm thinking of a guy at Texas A&M that played on Saturday. It's like, cool. $700,000 when I sign. That sounds great. But you know, I really need like $200,000 now. It's like, well, we can't pay you $200,000 now. That's against the rules. Okay, well, just so you know, there are some schools that I'm talking to that are ready to hand me $200,000 and a Wendy's bag if I say yes. It's like, okay. You know, like it's this. I think we are in the middle of the wildest last 48 hours in the history of college football recruiting. And I don't think I've not seen anybody make that bold of a statement. Who knows? Maybe Wednesday we'll be born and we'll look across the nation and go, hey, not a lot happened. But I think it is game on. And, you know, the Bryce Underwood situation with Michigan is a perfect example. Michigan wasn't spending $3.5 million a year on anybody before this season. That's not how they were operating. Remember, it was like 9 months ago where is Texas going to poach Michigan's best player because they can and it's a need. There was talk about that. In part because even Michigan guys were like, well, our NIL right now, it's not great. They'd say things like Michigan doesn't really want players who do NIL. Like, that's not why they're here. And you're like, huh, okay, interesting. Because Ohio State's got $20 million that says otherwise. Now Michigan is throwing out 10 plus million over 3 years for 5-star quarterbacks. They got the money. Everybody has the money. And the Underwood thing happens. And I think that we'll see more of it. We're going to see some guys flip. And you're just going to have to know something came in late. You're going to be like, why is Florida State and Florida and USC and why are these guys going to school there? And it's like, oh, because those schools know that if they don't go YOLO with their NIL spending, they're going to have to fire their head coach next year. And then all of this is almost like a sunken cost. So if you're going to keep a guy, think about like if Jimbo were still around. If Jimbo, let's say Jimbo were still on staff, Chad, but he goes 8-4 this year. And you're just kind of like, boy, he better win 10 games or else next year. A&M, and I think this is the new college football play. A&M or whoever school is kind of in that boat, they're going to go bananas in NIL because they know they're trailing and they know that if they can't find a way to change the dynamics, they're going to have to fire their coach. And they should have, you know, if you knew 12 months ago that you needed to fire your coach and then you wait 12 months, you set your program back. So at schools like Florida, at schools like USC, you're going to see some incredibly high level spending take place in the name of, we got to do whatever we can so that next year people aren't asking if we're going to fire our coach. So, like I said, man, next 48 hours, buckle up.
A lot of super chats piling up. Catch, we're still talking recruiting here. It's going to be one of those kind of shows because there's a lot to get to. Who else?
I got to get out in like 5 minutes. So let's go rapid fire. We'll suspend, buy or sell. But I didn't think it'd be 1:30 and we'd not, like, just full transparency. I still got to pay you tomorrow. Like, I got to do some business admin stuff. You want to get paid, right?
I do. So it's not that. It's not.
I got to get it done. It's like I got to get it done by 2. So that's our time frame. I got to be able to go online and pay people.
I'm just scanning these to make sure I get the right ones before you have to go.
Give me like 5-10 minutes, but I got like a hard out at 1:40.
140. Okay. All right. We'll just have to grab a couple of these here. Let's go to this one. South End Zone Queen threw in one on recruiting. $4.99. Justice Terry is a must get for me. Bring the Brinks truck. We have Gooseby next year and hopefully turn time. So combining offensive and defensive line there.
Yeah, no, I would love to be a fly on the wall. Justice Terry put out a tweet earlier today that said his recruitment is shut down. But if you want to reach out to him, here's an email address for his handler. Like, I'm telling you, these guys are all being told, hey, don't say crap. Don't commit. Don't give away leverage. Because you have no idea what in the next, next 48 hours, we might hit the Brinks truck might back up. And if you're Texas, you're like, okay, well, we're going to back the Brinks truck up for Justice Terry. But what we don't want to do is leave so much time that Georgia has a chance to counter. This is a cat and mouse game if there ever was. Let's say Georgia's offering Justice Terry $1.2 million and Texas is like, we'll give you 1.5. You don't want to leave so much time that you're able to call Georgia and say, hey, can you do 2? And Georgia's like, oh, well, we got to get back to you and hold on and we'll call you back. And, that is what's happening. And it's not all for that level of money. The Baylors and the TCUs of the world are dealing in low hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even they've got enormous cap space. You think about, we were laughing at the Baylor coaches for walking around earlier this year and we spend NIL money t-shirts. Everybody's got it. Otherwise, if you can't spend your 20 million, you're in the wrong sport. You might as well go to the next level down because 20 million is going to be a buddy of mine. I remember Sean Adams. 1 year, Sean got into a $20,000 cash game, poker. I was having a party at my house that night. He came over with the cash in his hands. He was so nervous. And then he told me that when he played the game, every hand was incredibly nervous. And he ended up cashing out, and I think he won, he won a little bit. And he got out of there, and he's like, I'm never doing that again. That was more than I could handle. From now on, Sean was like, I'll play in the $100 games. The 20,000, all I can think about is I'm losing my money, right?
Right.
And I remember that night at the party thinking, God, is Sean losing all his money?
Yeah.
The answer was no, he did okay. And his story about the hand that won him his money was fantastic because the guy tried to browbeat him by basically saying, I can lose all my money. And I got like another 100 in the car. If you can't spend $20,000 without it losing it, wrecking your world, don't play in a $20,000 cash game. And if you're in college football right now and you can't spend $20 million in NIL, the NCAA is saying you can do this, then you're in the wrong sport. But knowing that everybody's got it means you need to also know that these schools are going to spend it because it won't do them any good if at the end of the year it's like, well, what did we spend? $6.5 million? Great. That's higher than we did a year ago. Yeah, but a lot of guys said no, so we didn't quite get to our goals. Man, you better spend that money. You better spend it. If at the end of it, it's like, oh, we only spent $9 million, then the next time somebody enters the portal, you better offer them $10 million. Spend your money. You have to spend the minimum 20. You have to. And because other schools, that's the thing, Chad. Other schools are going to be spending 40 and 50. That Texas One Fund doesn't stop existing because the football program itself is allowed to spend 20 million. What do you think Ohio State? They're already spending 20. What do you think they'll do now? They'll spend 40. And so at a minimum, you can't be at the little kids table on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. All right. We'll try to get a couple more of these before you have to roll. Bijan's Lambo, $4.99. After viewing almost the entire season, buy or sell. The standard for Texas is now CFP quarterfinal. A success is semifinal. Complete failure is missing the college football playoff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the way I've already viewed it. I think making the playoffs, Bijan's Lambo, is the minimum. That's the minimum every year. Across the country, an Ole Miss or an A&M, or think about some of the teams that are going to miss the playoffs in all likelihood. Alabama's a good example. If they get in, they won't quite hit their bar likely, but at a minimum, you got to get in. It's like the Sweet 16 in college basketball. Did you have a successful season? If you didn't get to the Sweet 16, nobody's going to remember it. So you got to at least make the playoff. And then if you're at Texas or at Georgia or in Alabama, you can start setting the standards however high you want to. But yeah, making the playoffs, I think for Texas, making the quarterfinals at a minimum, I think that's the minimum bar. And it's a wealthy person's problem to be able to live. Sark called it yacht problems earlier today.
Right.
Yeah, by the way, that was actually a great comment that he made. It was like,
I think he said, crying on a yacht, right? He said crying on a yacht or champagne problems.
No, was it champagne problems? Champagne problems on the yacht I think.
Right. He kind of used both of those there. I'm sure Taylor Swift fans enjoyed the champagne.
He was
problems.
like being on a yacht with champaign problems.
There you
That's
go.
what
Texas boy says, who offers Arch $19 million? Texas boy, thank you for that.
And then you know what, Texas boy? The best thing that Texas has going for them with Arch is they don't need anybody's NIL money. When Arch becomes the starting quarterback, he's just going to have millions and millions of opportunities. And he doesn't need it. I mean, they've literally not cashed NIL checks in these first 2 years out of principle because they're kind of well off. So wealthy people get to have principles with money. And they've been able to say, could we do a $2 million deal with Nike? Sure. Would we rather wait and take that money when he becomes a starting quarterback because we think that's what's appropriate? Yes. But everybody else in the world, not the other half, are like, hey, man, I get it. It would be best if I waited till I was a starter, but I can't turn down $2 million, so pay me.
Yeah. Catch real quick. Will it be profit sharing plus the NIL? Brian for $1.99. That just feels like a lot to get into.
Yeah.
Profit sharing?
And for $1.99. No, I don't think profit sharing.
Profit sharing? I think that might be a little.
I mean, the profit sharing is the reinvestment. That is truly profit sharing at that point. That's never happened before in college football. So it certainly is a version of that. And depending on how much money it climbs to, we may. Remember, I told you, I think within 5 years, we'll be at teams, and we may get there in 12 months. But I predicted that we would see the richest teams in college football spend what the cheapest teams in Major League Baseball spend, which would be like $60 million. Think Oakland A's.
Yeah. And by the way, the two quick gifts that Texas fans got on Saturday, $5 super chat. Hooked on the Horn said Arch was mean mugging people after the touchdown run. He had the look of, I'm not going to let them win in Austin next year either. Hooked. That was, the idea that he would score the first touchdown of that game when that rivalry comes back, and that snarl, like if y'all didn't love that as a Texas fan, I don't know what to tell you. That was a badass moment for him, for Texas, for that side of the rivalry. It was an incredible moment. Incredible.
He's got real moxie, man.
Oh my God. It was an unbelievable moment. All right, Catch, before you get out, I don't think any of the other super chats I see are super critical for you since you got to run. Anything else recruiting wise? Did we hit all the names you wanted to hit?
I mean, I think we don't say Michael Terry's name enough because he's just been so quiet. That's going to happen though. So, that is it's a super blue chip. I don't have him rated as a 5-star, but I think he's just below that. That's a major, you lose Mbachu, but you bring in a guy like at a minimum, Texas is going to hit some big fish in the next couple of days. Terry will be one of them. I just would be shocked if Nebraska, that's not what I'm hearing. So, don't forget that because there will be some focus on probably more focus on what they don't get than what they do, unless they really pull a big dog. But Michael Terry's a big dog. And I think because that one's almost taken for granted, people are kind of treating that like he's already a commitment. That's worthy of like an office party if he commits. That guy, I think Michael Terry would have had a significant role on this Texas team this year if he were on the team. That a lot of schools are just outright recruiting him at running back. He would have got running back snaps this year. Yeah. And I think he's really good. He's a big dude. And like typically that guys that size don't play running back, but there are exceptions to the rule. And I think I like him as a running back more than I like Jarrett Gibson at the same time a year ago. And seeing Gibson with my own eyes this season doesn't change that. I think at a minimum, Michael Terry for me would be an upgrade over Gibson. And like that, would not be an insignificant thing just to have that money in the bank at that position, plus playing tight end, plus being a little bit he's very Trey Wisner-ish when you think about, he's like a more elevated Trey Wisner from a style comparison standpoint, considering Wisner wasn't even a starter at running back at the end of his high school career. He was kind of a all-purpose, spending a lot of time at wide receiver, playing some running back. And now Chad, unless he gets hurt, he's going to get the 1,000 yards.
Yeah, he is. You're right. I think the pace is going to be there. We'll be double checking those numbers. All right, Catch, you couldn't have hoped for this kind of gift. You've got to run. You're going to leave me with some super chats to do, and there's no telling how much attacking I'm going to get from the folks today. So there you go.
Well,
have yourself a good rest of your Monday.
Well, it is. It's 1:41.
It is. All right. You have a good rest of your day. I'll clean up these super chats, and we'll finish it up here.
Thanks, brother.
Talk to you tomorrow. That is Jeff Ketchum. The boss got to go do some boss things. Let me slightly alter that for you. We'll wrap. Don't worry. I will get the super chats in. There's been a few of them. Also, because some of them were kind of directed at me and maybe the game itself. We just want to make sure we get the recruiting discussion out of the way. So I thought that was important. Also, definitely important for us to give a shout out to not only Specs for the Specs chat, but let me give AV Consultations their love. Maybe you watched the game on a janky screen. Maybe you went to your buddy's house and his screen is better than yours. Or you went to your sister's house and her screen is better than yours and it pissed you off. AV Consultations can make sure you get the right screen or more screens or a better screen. 255-8678. Make it your holiday gift to the whole family. The movie room, the meeting room, the audio visual room you always wanted. It's an easy thing to remember. AV, Audio Visual Consultations. avconsultations.com or just call the number 255-8678. They've been around since 1988. Getting it done. We hope you enjoyed your setup. And even if maybe you didn't enjoy it and it could get better, AV Consultations can make that happen. All right, let's get through some of these. This is from earlier. Jesse says, TCH again. I missed introductions to Kill It on the Table. Good for you. Plus the bad beat bacon was good. Texas recruits studs. Every loss is a loss. That's true, but you can always replace with other, replace them with others. And that may be what we are about to see. And yes, Jesse, the answer is yes. $1 draft, $2 jellyfish. I'm just going to have you. There you go. Your chat is perfect because we can still see the beer specials. $1 draft, $2 jellyfish. That'll be an hour before kick, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock is when the game fires up. There's some bad beat bacon. Now I'm going to have to take the chat down. We can't have a chat covering the bacon. There we go. Can't cover up the bacon with the chat. TCH Social Austin. That's where we'll be on Saturday. Yes, I have to wear a burnt orange shirt because the Longhorns beat the Aggies, so you can come out for that this weekend as well. And that will be going on at TCH Social Austin. All right, let's grab a couple more super chats here. This is $9.99. Appreciate y'all for the content. Waited 13 years for that beat down reminder against the Saggies, really. Catch, why does Elko look like your evil twin? Hook 'em. It's weird. When I saw Elko, I thought, are those my glasses? They feel like those are my glasses that he's got on. Thank you for that. We appreciate you, and we do love doing it. Paul jumps in with a $9.99. Chad, you're 100% right. Playing a QB with a bum ankle in a rivalry, putting them in the hole is imperative. Then making Texas punt, and the game can feel suffocating. Know the situation. Yeah, that's what it was for me, Paul. I didn't grasp it. Here was another stat that blew my mind watching the replay. And I hadn't thought of this one. I hadn't looked it up. Kirk Herbstreit threw this out as the Aggies were, and I think it was at the moment they're on that first drive and maybe trying to figure out, are you kicking that first field goal? In the SEC, in SEC games, when A&M scores first, they're like 52-12. But when the other team scores first, they're like 11-11, something like that. I'd never thought of it that way, but I didn't understand. How do you not want 3-0 there? It's not going to win you the game. Nobody. But if you just do it, then the rest of that game could have a different feel. Because at the moment the punt is blocked, it would have been 17-10. And then you get to make a decision of, do you want 17 all, or do you want to take 17-13 and then try to make it made no sense. And Paul, to the specific point, if A&M was coached by Lane Kiffin, Tom Herman, Dan Lanning, I'd have to eat that because they're an offensive-minded wackadoo kind of coach sometimes. I thought the Aggies had hired a defensive coach. I thought they'd hired a defensive-minded coach that appreciates defense and special teams and field goals and points and one-score games and leads if you can get them. Apparently that's not the case. Maybe I'm just experiencing sort of past feelings, but I felt like this A&M team needed an R.C. Slocum type, and they didn't have it in this game. I couldn't understand it. Just did not understand. Jose, $4.99 super chat. Chad, what play deflated the stadium more? Burke on fourth, Wisner slithering in the fourth. Also, I think even Le'Veon Moss gets blown up on that play. It had to be Burke. Had to be. Because at that point, you've pushed the chips in, and every Aggie in that building knew it was still 2 scores. I mean, Wisner had multiple runs that took energy from that place. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's the Burke play. It's the Burke. And as much as credit as you could give Ethan Burke, it was the entire defense that swallowed that play. If Ethan Burke doesn't make the play, there's a city council meeting waiting to make that play. To your last point, Jose, if there are Aggies out there, in fact, I think I saw some weird post today about if Le'Veon Moss plays, the Aggies are 10-2. We obviously can't know that. But to that specific play, if the argument is, well, if Le'Veon Moss plays, they definitely get a touchdown there. I'm not so sure. That is as simplistic a play call as you can make in a situation that should have been obvious, and I don't know if Le'Veon Moss gets that yard. I don't for sure. It was a bland, vanilla of vanilla. It was like the cheapest vanilla in a convenience store kind of call. That's what kind of call that was. On the other side, when Texas had a 4th and 2, what did they do? They made an interesting call. They put Arch Manning in. He ran the ball. He even got a damn touchdown on the play. Look at the Aggies' 3 4th down plays. Oh, my God. Boring run up the middle, and a shotgun formation with Emmett's kid standing next to the quarterback. Those were the 3 4th down plays. That's what it was. Jose, thank you for that. Barb's10. What's up, Barbs? Hope you enjoyed the watch party. Said TCH was tense at times. Love the win, but felt bad for my Aggie father-in-law. Look at you being nice, feeling bad for the Aggie father-in-law. Text thread was quiet and took the fun out of it. I blame Elko. Barb's10, I do too, because he could have added the tension, and he didn't want to do it. He didn't want it. I didn't understand it. People were there. Nobody was leaving. And they had towels. They were spinning them sometimes. And he didn't want it. Didn't want to make it a one-score game. It's interesting. In a game that he later said they got physically annihilated. Okay. Physically annihilated, but you could have made it 17-10? Minimum. Should have been 17-13. I can't possibly ask you in 2024 to be that forward thinking or backwards thinking and kick 2 field goals. By the way, is it that crazy to ask Colin Klein to want 2 field goals? Colin Klein. Who trained Colin Klein? Bill Snyder. Where'd he play? K-State. What were they all about at K-State? The details and defense and special teams and take the points and all that. Didn't want the points. Didn't want them. 6 points. 6 for free. I'm not saying it's absolutely free, but I think that first field goal would have been like 34 yards, something like that. We know what the last one would have been. A chip shot, 18 yards, 20. You don't trust Randy Bond to hit either one of them? Not either? Just both of them. Nah, we're good. We're good. Don't worry. We got it. We'll figure it out. Okay. Thank you for that one, Barb's10. Hope to see you out there on Saturday. Chris from earlier. Chris, I appreciate you thinking about me. $5. Enough kicking Chad while he's down. Chad, what's your silver lining this Monday for the future? Oh, Lord, Chris. Might be too soon. I think the silver lining has to be that deep down, if you're an Aggie, you believe Mike Elko is a good football coach, but things have to be better on game day. Sometimes things have to be a little different on game day. But I think that's maybe you assume the recruiting is still going to be pretty good and you assume he's a pretty good football coach. But they've got to figure some things out. Figure out what your identity is and lean into it. And then the full acceptance of this rivalry coming back, I do think is important on some level. Guys, I'm going to just tell y'all, from the side of it I was on, y'all know I've been jacked about this thing. I've been so excited and so jacked. And I got up on Saturday and I was trying to make sure, and my dad and I were, we're trying to see how early we could get my mom out of that hotel room and get her down there. And she's always kind of rolling her eyes about, yeah, we'll get there, whatever, 7 hours before kick. You guys are crazy. And we get down there and there were some things that were kind of prepped, but then I watched people still setting up tailgates at noon. Still setting up tents at 1:20. And I'm like, what is that? I wasn't asking for all the way LSU behavior, which is be there at 7:30 in the morning, no matter what. But I just didn't feel that intensity. Didn't feel it. And then everything around the game was weird. The Aggies just kept conceding stuff and changing stuff. Midnight yell practice? Screw that. Let's do it at 5:30 in the afternoon. What? What are you talking about? Senior night's supposed to be the last night you're at home, but we won't do it that way. We'll move it to a different game. Okay. And we need temporary speakers in the stadium. Why? I don't know. You want temporary speakers in the stadium for your biggest rival that's coming? Huh? What is going on? I don't understand. And then we get to Kyle Field, and instead of being able to enjoy a lovely draft beer, a lovely draft craft beer from around the state of Texas. Shout out to Carbach and whoever else does it. Oh, can't do that. They won't trust us with that. At the Texas game, we had a choice between 3 cans of beer. 3 cans. If I don't drink any of it and I try to throw it, it's a more dangerous object. But somehow that needed to happen. We went from cool draft beer to cans of beer for this game. It's a little detail, but you know what I mean? I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I don't know. I don't know. So, Chris, the silver lining is I think there's some good things in there substance-wise, but I just didn't feel like everything that needed to be dialed in for that game was dialed in. And I get why Anwar and some people showed up to that thing and they watched it all and went, yeah, no, it was good. It was good. I had Texas people tell me, man, loud environment. It was raucous. I had a Baltimore Ravens fan tell me, boy, I wish I could get your fans and rent them out for a Ravens game. Great energy and all that stuff. But it wasn't kooky, crazy, hair on the back of your neck. The building is shaking and rocking kind of stuff. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the team just couldn't play well enough. And Texas fans, to bring it back full circle, that's the credit you ultimately get. That's the credit your team gets. It's the credit Sark gets. You could feel the edge on that Texas team. All of it. There was such an edge to that group. Sark, when he was interviewed on game day, and they made him wait. I don't know if y'all caught that, but they made him wait. They just made him sit there, and it felt like he was stewing. They made him wait so long that they apologized multiple times for making him wait. And he just sat there and he let it happen. And he let McAfee make his jokes. Oh, they hate you here, coach, and blah, blah, blah. And he ended with and we're the villains. And we'll play that role well. We're comfortable being the villains. And he kept that thing going. It felt like just the intensity built just the right way on the Texas side, and the Aggies never could figure out how to grab a hold of it. They couldn't figure out how to get an edge. They couldn't figure out how to get fired up. It was just weird on their side, and Texas, it all felt like it lined up, whether it was the Sark stuff, whether it was, I don't know when, like this, somebody shows up to game day with the sign referencing Jake Ellinger, just a horrible thing to do. And that really fired the guys up. And it felt like they used that as some focus. Anthony Hill got the rip from across the way. By the way, Trey Zune, Aggie offensive lineman, if you're going to run your mouth about Anthony Hill, you might want to remember that 45 is your job. Because on a huge play, well before Broughton makes the biggest moment of the game, he threw you to the side. He just hip-tossed you like he was Bret the Hitman Hart in his prime, and you took it like a jobber. So you might not want to run your mouth before the game. Everything lined up for Texas, and then you get the arch touchdown, and then you get the arch snarl, and then you get a team on the other side that doesn't value field goals and has an offense that's not going to work. And oh, by the way, your defense just kept making plays. Taft made the play. Broughton made the one I mentioned. Then at the end, Trey Moore swipes the fumble, and Broughton gets the cover. Texas defense just kept. The only play that wasn't made, shout out to Daddy Sorrell. I know Barron was upset about that one. If they make that play, that's about the only one that wasn't made. The tip by Collins, where Sorrell's got to find it, and he's got to find it straight over his head. That was a tough one. If that one gets made, who knows? But man, on the Aggie side, just so many missed opportunities. The 2 field goals you didn't want, that ball that could have been picked, that other ball that could have been picked. Maybe it's a third one that could have been, and they just couldn't figure it out, couldn't grab onto any of it. And by the end, Texas was in control, and Texas had won the ball game. All right, let's see. South End Zone Queen. It's therapy time, Chad. Let it all out. Yeah, might have to. South End Zone Queen. There may be a little bit of therapy. There are some feelings. Oscar, Super Chat $9.99. Elko wanted to show that they were tougher. The flagship program, as he says, he cost his team a chance trying to prove something he couldn't. Oscar, that's a decent enough way to say it. Just know your team. Know your team. Who's been telling everybody that run game changed when Le'Veon Moss got hurt? Me. Why would you run your second best running back into a boring play on the biggest play of that game? Play action made more sense. Reed made more sense. Having Bussey in the backfield would have made more sense. Everything but putting Emmett's kid in at that point would have made more sense than what we saw. But none of it with 5 minutes to go made more sense than Randy Bond. Number 47 is the answer to that question. This is the dude that hit a kick to beat Bama. And you can't let him go out there for a 19-yarder to make it a one score. There are no guarantees, like Ketch said earlier. I think Texas still ultimately wins the game. I thought they were better going in. I thought they'd win. I thought the Aggies would require Texas to win a one-score game, and I thought they'd get out of it. They did, and the Aggies they did less than I thought they would do. They put up less of a fight because they didn't want either of those field goals. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. Y'all get to hear me, old man bitch. And to the person who put in the chat earlier about buy or sell, take the 3. How dare you? How dare you already starting with that? $5 super chat from Hooked on the Horn. Spending Christmas with my Aggie relatives this year is going to be glorious. I bet it will. I bet it will. Hooked. That is part of what the holidays are about right now. But let me say very clearly that I am so glad it happened. I am so glad it's back. I told y'all from the very beginning, I'll risk the loss. I'll risk it because that's how good the rivalry is. It was so much fun to see people in burnt orange and people in maroon speaking again and talking again and interacting. I talked to friends who were going to the game together. I sat next to a couple who was a house divided couple. She was the Aggie. He was the Longhorn. Had a Longhorn sitting right in front of me. And we're all just kind of talking throughout the game. And there was a little snarkiness at times, but basically everybody got along. And I also was glad, since my team was on the losing side of a rival game, I'm glad that we found a way to be the only rivalry game that didn't end with flags or spears or pushing or shoving or whatever it was. We need to figure that out, by the way. We all need to figure that out. This would be my quick take on it. From the losing side, all right? From the losing side. How about this? How about if you lose to your rival on your field, they not only get bragging rights for a year, they not only get whatever they want on social media and it's their time, they also get a team picture on your logo. How about that? Can we do that? We allow that in Dallas, right? Whoever wins, Texas or OU, you get a picture at the logo. At that point, who cares? I'm in the camp of, if you wanted to stop them, stop them. If you wanted to make it close, kick a damn field goal. Otherwise, get to the locker room. It's their field now. It's their field till they walk off. Now, are they allowed to, grab chunks of the field? Well, no, that's different. But let them have the picture. Let them have a picture. If they want to stand there with a flag, who cares? If they want to take their pitchfork and stab it in there, that was actually kind of a nice image. Now, I root for Arizona State over Arizona, but y'all got to admit that's a pretty cool image. To the victor, go the spoils. That's what my co-host, Jeff Ketchum, has told me since 2008, and he's right. I would have had no problem with it. Whether it's a dancing on or a stomping on or whatever, these kids get way too sensitive about that part. Let's allow for a team picture because that's cool. Team picture, all the Longhorns right there on the Aggie logo. If it mattered to them, let them have it. Who cares? The game's over and they won. And to the victor go the spoils. So the one thing I will say positive coming out of it, it was civil. It was civil. My niece and her group went down to Northgate. She said they didn't see any crazy fights. It was a pretty civil time. There were people saying some snarky things on the way out. Longhorn fan that was chanting 8-4 Alamo Bowl at all the Aggies. A, well played. B, how dare you? It's too raw at that point. But I don't understand why we have to have all the fighting and we should have known it would happen in Columbus. But all that was sad to see. We should just have the acceptance of that moment. If you want to stop them in the game. That's just me. All right. Lost Architect. This might be the last one here. Chad came to Austin for the Texas Florida game. Went to Hayes City store with my wife. Great food and 350 Lone Star bottles. Hey there, Lost. That's good. It's good stuff. I don't know about you, and I don't know if you are a Texan, but you might be since it is the national beer of Texas. I know sometimes it gets ripped on. I honestly believe sometimes there are problems and there are situations that can only be made better by a bottle of Lone Star. There is something about it. At the right time, at the right moment, on the right day, an ice cold, perfect Lone Star. Oh, it's so good. It's a good beer. I'm a fan of it. I'm with you. National Beer of Texas. I don't just drink it ironically. I drink it because I like it, and sometimes there are perfect situations. Let me see if I missed anything. I think I got all of the super chats in. And one more reminder. We'll be reminding you all week. Couple reminders here, but remember to come see us at TCH Social Austin. Man, I'm looking forward to this rematch. These two dudes you talk about wanting it back. I bet you they're so sick of seeing that film of what they did on October 19th. Now whoever can make the best of the second one is going to get an SEC title. So come out and see us at TCH Social Austin. That's the Bad Beat Bacon. I know I'm having some of that to help me get over what happened last Saturday. Plus, I'm going to be wearing the burnt orange shirt. It's going to happen. I am a man who pays off his bets. That's right. I will be wearing the burnt orange poncho shirt on Saturday. Plus, I got to Venmo my man Greg, my high school buddy, my doubles partner in high school. We were a house divided doubles team. I never even thought about that. Back-to-back district champs. What up? But we've now upped our bet to $5. I owe him $5. It started as a quarter bet with my grandfather. We upped it to a buck and a quarter. And now we're all the way up to $5 with inflation. So I got to Venmo the man $5 today because Texas beat Texas A&M. But the rivalry's back. That's what it's about. That's what we like. Also, Ketch kind of mentioned this earlier. Let's throw this out today. Cyber Monday sale from Rivals going on. Not 85, but 75% off of the annual subscription. It is a great time to jump in with Rivals. And obviously, from our perspective, on orangebloods.com. Go Rivals24 on your promo code. Hey, signing day is Wednesday. We will have all kinds of great coverage for you, and you will definitely want to be on orangebloods.com. You can check out the full commitment list, and you can watch those videos, and you can do all the stuff. When you hear us talking about highlight videos, and we're referencing all the star ratings and everything, you can check all that out if you're on orangebloods.com. Plus, the craziest message board on planet Earth is there for you as well. So check that out as we get closer to signing day. Speaking of signing day, 8 a.m. Wednesday. They're going to fire it up. Ketch, Anwar, Jason Sukamel, I believe are going to start it out. There'll be all kinds of folks involved that day. But 8 to 11, I think is what they're planning for the signing day morning part. Jump in with them early. This is why we tell you to like, subscribe, and get those notifications. Make sure you get the notification because then you'll know when this kind of stuff starts up. But 8 o'clock on Wednesday is when National Signing Day will hit. You got Football with Friends tonight at 6. We're going to hit the Outsiders tonight on a Monday show and start talking Texas and Georgia, and maybe recapping a little bit since I was there and Chance Mock was there in College Station. We'll get our thoughts from the game. And then you got Old Fashioned tomorrow at 9 and the Modcast tomorrow at 10. And I did mention the signing day stuff. By the way, real quick peek in. This is my projection. This is if they use the AP poll. This is what tomorrow night will be. By the way, 6 p.m. Football with Friends will be right in the middle of it at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. Right now, this is how I would see it. And Texas would play the Indiana-Georgia winner. For those of you that have been talking about Texas and Georgia Part 3 being a possibility, what if this happens tomorrow night and the committee is basically saying to Texas and Georgia, hey, guys, play a close one, and the winner gets the bye and the loser hosts? Could that be what we're looking at? And then you might have to rematch right off of it. You might have to, the team will get the bye week, and then the other's going to have to fight their way back to the other one for a possible round 3. Anyway, that's what it could look like tomorrow night. All right. I appreciate you guys jumping in. Let me just scan real quick. Couple of super chats. Hang on. We definitely want to give you a chance to super chat if you want to. I do appreciate that. That was that one. Okay. So we got these 2. All right. Got 2 more before we get out of here. Let's start with the 10 spot from Thomas. $10. What are the ramifications of the loss for the A&M program? Anyone on the hot seat? Maybe some warm seats. Thomas, that's a great question. I hadn't thought about it that way, but the truth is A&M just finishes off, a winless conference November. I told y'all about the numbers. They've only had 3 winning Novembers in conference since they joined the SEC, and this is now an 0-3 that, a lot of people would not have expected. Both Aggies and people that can't stand the Aggies wouldn't have thought they'd lose all 3 of them, but they do. One in catastrophic fashion, the other 2 in painfully close fashions for different reasons. But it's a good question about ramifications for the program because, Thomas, whatever A&M is having to deal with right now, then they've got to figure out what this new world is. And, for their sake, you hope they're not. I mean, they know now, whatever Saturday night was, they know Texas is there. They know Texas is big time. Texas is going to Atlanta. They've never done that. And all that stuff that some of the Aggies were trying to get away from back in 2011, 10, 11, 12, then it's all come back. And it's come back hard to get them. So they got to process this whole thing. Like, they've got to process it. They got to try to figure it out. That's a good question about hot seat. I don't know if, this is year one of Elko and therefore year one of Colin Klein. And so, you probably got to stick it out till next year, let the schedule roll through, to the other side of it, and then sort of see. So I don't know if there's an obvious, like, oh my God, hot seat person to go into. This is also a season where, like Ketch always says, sometimes it's an excuse, sometimes it's a reason. Big injuries hit the Aggies this year, clearly. But the injury stuff to start, plus the quarterback room weirdness, they've got to figure all that out. Like, is this a Marcel Reed team moving forward, or are there other, answers out there? They got to figure it out. All right. Hooked on the Horns says, $5. Chad, I agree with you. I'm so damn glad that this game is back. Hooked, I am too. Despite the result of it, that's what you got to be willing to risk. And I hated this week for 12 years. I hated it. I hated watching the rest of the country do the thing you're supposed to do, and we couldn't. We were scared to do it. All the reasons. I even saw it last week. Everybody going through here's why they don't play, and here's whose fault it was. And one side says it was this side is saying it was Texas' fault, and Texas is saying it was, oh my God. The issue was you didn't play. For whatever all those reasons were, that you didn't play. And now it's back together, and now here we go. But I do wonder, and Hooked, here's the other thing that you have to be excited about on your side. Not just that you're playing well and all that, but the feeling. I feel like there was a lot more of, man, we're glad this game is back on the Texas side than maybe even on the Aggie side, because the Aggies had their feelings back in 2021 of some of it was no, this won't happen. My God, the AD and the head coach looked like just got caught in the crossfire of that whole thing. And A&M just kind of threw them under the bus and let them look silly. And that is only a few years ago. But man, Texas fans just felt so ready for it, so ready to go. And, and they get it. They get the first one. They get all the stuff. And now it's, 10 out of 13, right? 10 out of the last 13, 6 out of the last 7 in College Station. It is back for the Aggies. Some Aggies aren't thrilled about that. I love it. I love it, and I'm going to love it forever, because now the updated tote board in my life, sadly, I'm about to be on the planet 50 years, but only 38 of those years have had this game, and it's 19 all since I was born. So here we go. This is it. And I wouldn't care if it was 38-0 the other way. It's a game that has to be played. It was so much fun. By the way, the other thing I didn't bitch about earlier, that off-campus bonfire they've had since 2003? Yeah, they didn't burn it. Burn ban. Okay. So in 2024, the Aggies couldn't figure out how to get around a burn ban to burn the off-campus bonfire. And they're going to burn it in the spring. Okay. Why so many concessions? That's what I can't get. Why so many concessions from the Aggies this year? Everything just got altered and changed and moved. If you're weird enough and kooky enough to have a tradition that happens every single game, and it's called Midnight Yell, who wants to tell me when it should start? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Reese Davis tried to save him by saying, well, it's midnight somewhere. What? I didn't even know the 5:30 thing was happening until 10 o'clock. My parents and I were going to watch it on my phone because we're old, right? I'm about to be 50. My parents are a little older than 50. We didn't want to go all the way down there to the midnight yell practice. Glad we didn't. There'd have been nobody there. I'd have been banging on the door. Boom, boom, boom. Yo! Yep. Midnight. Hey, it's 11. Like it's 11:45. Did y'all? No. It's called midnight yell. Midnight yell practice. That's what it's called. Why'd you move it? Well, we wanted the team in Elko to be able to be there. Huh? The game kicks at 6:30 that night. When I was a kid, Jackie Sherrill and the guys were at that yell practice. R.C. Slocum and the guys would show up. Now, maybe it's fair to say they showed up for the bonfire ceremony and maybe not midnight yell, but guess what? If the coach and the team want to come to midnight yell, they're more than welcome. At 12:01 at midnight, it's midnight yell. That's what it's called. Midnight yell. This is the part, people. This is the part. This is the part where the one Aggie that asks all the questions gets eye rolls from the rest of them. But I guarantee you I'm not the only Aggie thinking of it. You ask my mother. You ask my mother who was hanging out with me throughout the weekend. Just every little thing, I would just look at her and go, what do you... I said, it's called midnight yell, right, Mom? Yeah. So when should they have it? And she just started laughing. I'm like, it should be at midnight, right? If you moved it to 10:30, I'd say it was weird. 5:30 in the afternoon? And I know what you're going to say to me. The Aggie, Chad, I don't know what you're talking about. There was like 80,000 people there. Okay. All right. I'm not saying you couldn't have 2 yell practices. It's a big enough thing to have 2 yell practices. But it's called midnight. Just maybe in 2026, if you're the Aggies and you really do care that this thing is back and you're really excited, maybe you have midnight yell at midnight. Maybe you find a way to burn that off-campus bonfire. Maybe, by the way, I heard they sawed the horns off of an ice sculpture bevo. An ice sculpture bevo? This is where we've come. And maybe in 2026, maybe, just maybe, you'll get your tailgates going before noon, kids. Uncle Chad was ready to party. Y'all were still getting stuff together at like 11:30 in the morning. What? We've been in this conference for over 12 years. I've been to Baton Rouge twice. Those kids were up at 8:15 in the morning offering me beers. Hey, man, you need a Coors Light? We got some moonshine. And the Aggies at 11:30 and noon were telling me, yeah, we're getting stuff set up. It's almost there. Hold on. We're mixing. There's mixing in like an hour. There's going to be barbecue. In like an hour, they're playing football at Clemson right now, Jack. And in an hour, there's going to be barbecue. I thought I just spent 12 years telling them that y'all cranked it up. I just spent all this time telling them, man, my people getting that tailgating figured out. Wait till y'all see Aggie Park. Oh, my goodness. And at noon, we're still putting up tents? What are we doing? Hey, frat guys, y'all are just putting up the tent now? What? Oh, my God. Maybe we'll be ready. Maybe we'll be ready. You know what, Chris? I don't know. You might be right. I thought we were at least ready for that part. I don't understand. And y'all thought of it, right? Mark sends this in. Didn't y'all think that was silly when you heard it? Change it to 5:30 yell practice, right? Come on, man. Midnight yell. If you're going to go, go. It's at midnight. Hey, Coach Elko would like to be there. Tell him it's at midnight. It's called midnight yell. What are you talking about? Well, the team was wondering if you could work, if you could just change the schedule a little bit. If you could just move that. No, you can't move it. It occurs at midnight. Hence the name. I don't ever remember that happening. Ever. I don't remember. I went to one where Robert Earl and Lyle Lovett played a concert, and then they had yell practice. Do you know when it started? Midnight. They stopped the concert. They made sure they finished. Road Goes On Forever and Lyle's Big Head. It were done at 11:45 so that midnight yell practice could start. Just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. This has been cleansing. It has. Thank you, South End Zone Queen. It has been a bit of therapy. A little bit of therapy. All right. Let's see. We'll see if we get any more. No, got that. All right. I think we got all of them in there. Mark says, I'm quickly becoming his favorite Aggie. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I tell it like I see it, and I don't always get the most positive reactions in College Station. But I am who I am. I hope you guys enjoyed the game. And by the way, before we get out of here, let me give the credit. I'll keep giving it if I need to. I don't want anybody to think I'm running from this comment in any way. Two things that stood out to me from the game above everything else. Number one, I said that I would give credit to Sark if he got in and out of Fayetteville and in and out of College Station. And he just did. I cannot slow clap enough for that because I knew how difficult it would be when the schedule came out. Longhorn fans, you would admit there was nervousness in a way for both. We all felt deep down they were a better football team. I picked Texas to win both games. They did. By the time we got to both of those games, I thought Texas was better. I picked them. They won. And Texas fans, you didn't even need a one-score win. You didn't. You got 10-point wins in each of those games. Bravo to Sark for that. Bravo to Sark for his team paying attention to that Kentucky game to that level. Say what you want about that weird part, but they controlled Kentucky, and they won that ball game. Also, congrats to Texas for what appears to be, I think maybe even now we could say it, probably officially the best start for a new SEC team in this modern era. I think now what they've done would supersede what the Aggies did in 2012. I know there was a Heisman and a nice bowl win, but this is 11 wins in the regular season, and you're going to Atlanta. Unless Georgia just drills Texas, I think we can say, and Texas will head into a playoff anyway. I think we can safely say that. Certainly congrats to Texas for that one. And then just the atmosphere was incredible. It could have been better. But that's kind of A&M's fault. But just also all credit to the Texas players making plays. There are little things I could talk about. There are calls in the couple calls I disagreed with, but nothing too crazy. But I did think that when you talked about making plays in this game, my God, Texas players made plays. Taft's play. We talked about Broughton. Yes, Barron Sorrell didn't make that interception, but Sorrell was active all night long. The defensive front was great. The DBs made plays. Gunnar Helm made two plays that were amazing. He keeps doing it. A 3rd and 7 in one case, and I think that other one was like a 3rd and, was it 14? Just there were so many daggers in that game. Right down to it looked like Texas might have had a touchdown. Let's review. Yeah, they got a touchdown. There is that moment when Blue hits the ground that I don't think anybody really talked about, where I think the ball might have been loose. So is that a catch? But in terms of the foot, he was in. In terms of the pylon, Arch got it. And that deflated the crowd a little bit too. It was kind of let's see that rib. Oh, damn it. I mean, it had that feel to it. All credit to Texas for making those plays every single time, to get in and out of that environment like they did, to be able to chant SEC like they did and sing the eyes of Texas. To the victor go the spoils. They were the best. They were the better team, no doubt. And it was a weird, as it is to say, 17-7 ass kicking. I didn't think those existed, but it was. It was a dominating performance, 35-25 in time of possession. A&M was bad on 3rd down. Texas was really good on 3rd down. And then the rushing number. I told you I thought the Aggies had to outrush Texas to beat them. There was no other way. And Texas was great. And shout out to Trey Wisner. Mr. DeSoto, that was well done. Well done. You're the dude, and you might be the dude that can beat Georgia at this point. You might be the guy that can help Texas ultimately do that. The last thing I will say is the biggest compliment I'll give any Texas player on Saturday night. I was watching high in the end zone. We were row 20 in a 300 section, basically just straight on under that big scoreboard. So I'm not watching I am the old man that brings binoculars, but I'm not staring at a scoreboard when I go to a game. I'm going to watch the game. So I would take my binoculars and I might look at the players while the play is going on, but I'm not watching Jumbotron the whole time. So I vaguely remember that Banks was down at one point. And I may have said to myself, oh man, I got to check on that. And then I kind of forgot until I rewatched the game. I didn't realize Gooseby played that long. I didn't. He came in with no score. There was no score in that game when he walked in. And to the comment earlier about what Mike Elko said, I would have never said that if I'm Elko. But part of his frustration had to be that Texas loses their left tackle that quickly and is still able to not just effectively run, but chop wood and punch hard running left. They didn't stop running left just because it was Gooseby. Mr. Gooseby, that's the biggest compliment I can give a Longhorn in this game. Never even knew you were in. I didn't know you were in the whole game. And that's on me to some degree, but just like the best garbage man and the best catcher and the best drummer in music, there are certain jobs where the biggest compliment I can give you is I didn't even notice because you were so damn good. And you were. And in rewatching that game, you were a mauler in that game. Incredible preparation on your part to be ready to go and ready to play. And you were freaking amazing. You get the biggest compliment from me from the other side on that rival game, because not until I rewatched it did I realize everything that you did in that game. In my mind, you came in for like a drive or two, and then Banks was back. But I watch the replay and I see, oh my God, Banks is in street clothes for like 3/4 of this game. Well done, Trevor Gooseby. That was awesome. Incredible. And the fact that Texas fans aren't even sweating the Banks prognosis this week. I mean, maybe they are a little, but they're not freaked out because they know if you can handle your business like that against Georgia and Texas can get the win, you're going to get a lot of time off to rest that thing up. So shout out to Trevor Gooseby. By the way, if you haven't done the math, December 7th is the SEC title game. Getting that bye gets you all the way to either New Year's Eve or January 1st. That means the teams that win this coming Saturday get either 24 or 25 days off. Think about that. We know we've never had that, right? Real playoff system, but that's how it will lay out. That's a lot of time and maybe too much. Maybe we'll be talking about rust by the time we get there, but boy, is it time to get your team healthy and ready to roll. Just a little reminder there. All right. I think that might be all. You know what? I'm just going to throw that one up. I have no answer for this. Morgan. No answer. Ask me again tonight on the Outsiders. Maybe I'll have an answer for you on that one. All right. Thanks, everybody, for liking, subscribing, getting your notifications. Up over 1,800 of you in the Specs chat. It is an exciting time right now, and we appreciate you supporting us here at Orange Bloods Live. Remember, get the notifications so you know when things fire up. Wednesday, signing day. We're going to crank it up at 8 a.m. for signing day. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you join Football with Friends this evening at 6, and then we'll hit an Outsiders tonight at 8:30, and Anwar's got the old-fashioned for you at 9 tomorrow morning. Good grief. We did all that and didn't even have time for some buy or sell. We'll hold off buy or sell for tomorrow. Catch will be back tomorrow, and we will talk to you tomorrow for a Tuesday House Divided. I feel like I've gotten some feelings out. I appreciate